All right, hello all, and as promised, this is going to be the start of my little mini series of my own autobiography, digitalized, of course. Uh, I guess this is kind of my prelude and introduction as to why I would even bother to do this to begin with. Uh, well, for one, I think it's just catharsis in general. It's pretty enjoyable to actually kind of write down your memories and what's interesting to you and what kind of stands out to you, because what you're going to remember, especially as you're tapping deep into the recesses of your memory and how you even remember itself. It has this kind of a temporal nature to it. Things that I look at in the past, even at different stages of my life, I have different opinions on now, and that can be interesting too to look at. But yeah, this is just a little fun thing that I wanted to do in preparation for turning 28, which is kind of a big deal in the cosmic sense, since this is the start of a new cycle in the etheric body that Rudolf Steiner would talk about. Um, the, um, the the cycles of seven, and you see this in the human body and the sciences as well. Um, with when you lose your baby teeth and grow your adult teeth, this usually happens within that first adolescent cycle. Memory itself, as we go through this, memory has a way of not really being able to contextualize itself really to any capacity before the age of 7. So a lot of this is secondhand. I had to ask family for opinions and recountings for a lot of this early stuff. But yeah, this is just a little, I guess, explanation for why I wanted to make this to begin with. And I think examining this along with my own political convictions also can help, I think, come to a greater understanding of yourself. These sort of concepts of justice and calls to activism and just overall nastiness in the political sphere that we see all around us, whether it's predominantly the left or not. Either way, there is this kind of polarity to it, whether justified or not. And I think examining justice in this kind of real sense of your own life, instead of just looking at it from these abstract utilities and sort of micromanaged sorts of justice, if you will. I think it's not really authentic. I think it's much more to look at it in the examined life and try to see the good life to it. But that's enough of a little bit of a prelude, I suppose. I guess moving right along, I would want to talk about my dad's side of the family, since any autobiography starts with your family lineage and where you come from and who taught you how to go about life in your first 7 years. And so my dad's side of the family was complicated, to say the least, and quite frankly strained. My grandfather was quite an abusive man, a troublesome man. I didn't really get along with him even from the start. My mom noted that I was predominantly a female-orientated baby. Like I liked hanging out with my grandmother and my mother. I was a mama's boy, as you would put it. And this would actually rub my grandfather the wrong way. And I kind of remember him calling me a wuss, or even a pussy once in a while. I kind of remember that actually. I didn't know what a pussy was, but um, I had this thing for. I was a really energetic baby from what I was told. I like to move around a lot, as you can kind of see right now. It's actually kind of funny to look at some of my videos when I upload them. I have no idea how many you know movements and how much I actually move around, even when I think I'm sitting still. And that's always been the case with me. I've always had this kind of restless movement to me, and even as a child. And I had this thing for wanting to climb on top of just climbing on top of things and just jumping off of them and just trying to, I suppose, fight gravity itself. And I was known for my inquiry. I wanted to learn everything. I was big on trying to understand as much as I could, and I would ask a lot of questions to an annoying degree, as any young kid does, but I was kind of amped up to a degree. And I guess I'm getting back to my point about my grandfather. I used to like to mess around in the kitchen. I would just play with the pots and pans, and I actually used to even climb underneath the sink at my on my mother's side, my grandparents' house. I would climb in into the sink underneath and just sit down there and just chill with the appliances and just play with them and pretend like they were professional wrestlers. I was always into pro wrestling as well. My dad and his side of the family, they're all big wrestling fans. And so from the start, I just was always around professional wrestling, which is kind of important because I grew up alongside the wrestling boom of the late 90s, which is important actually to some degree because I think that was really the last time you really saw sort of just classic male entertainment like that on TV that was allowed to kind of be cutting edge, and 20 years later, 30 years later, we just all kind of sit around and still recollect how cool it was, how amped up every event was. And you had all these characters, and I'm already kind of going on here. But yeah, so from the start, I didn't really get along very well with my my grandfather on my dad's side. He was abusive, and he really ripped apart my dad's side of the family, I would say. My grandmother, she was obviously the main victim of the abuse, and this caused a whole slew of issues on her own. My dad has told me that she would often kind of had this pathological ability to just be able to lie on the fly, and this is most likely as a result of all the trauma of learning to try to just say the right thing to not be attacked. Because my grandfather was pretty irate and just a overall intense person. I just remember all this having this intense uneasiness around him, even in my youngest days. But nonetheless, if someone who abuses everyone in their family, even my father, my uncles, my aunts, he beat everyone from what I understood. This eventually, leads to either eventually it all comes to a head, and someone leaves. And in this case, it was my grandmother, and she took most of the family with her, and they just left. And I didn't see them for many years after that. They moved across the state, and my dad always resented that. He never came to peace with that. Never came to terms with the fact that he was actually left behind. She didn't bother to take him and left him with my grandfather, and I think that really troubled him and my uncle as well, who I keep in touch with. He might probably actually might even watch this video. What's up, buddy? If you're out there. But my grandmother as well. I never knew her in good health, and that's true for everyone on my dad's side. Health just wasn't in the cards really. Whether it was because of just lifestyle in general. There's a lot of cigarette smoking, myself included. I used to be a smoker as well. When we get to that, but overall, I would just say it wasn't really an area of long-term relationship building. I don't really have very many recollections because I was just too young before they had left, and so this would probably just lead me to my mom's side, which is where I was raised and more familiar with. And on my mom's side, which is my father's side, by the way, is descents of French immigrants, and I think might be some Dutch in there as well. And I don't think it was much different from there to here. I think we were just serfs and agrarian. I think I actually when I was first born, there was a farm that I think that the family had that I kind of hung out at when I was really young, but it was just too young for me to remember. But anyway, moving on. On my mom's side, my grandmother, she was always known for just her pristine attitude and just beauty, and really would just strive to just have this kind of upkeep, this constant upkeep of everything just appearing pristine. And I think that really reflected early on in mentally for me. Everything had a distinct border, and when I mean everything was clean around me, I truly mean that. Even when I would hang out in the sink, right, it was still pristine even in this underneath sink, because my grandparents would just work so hard on this house that they it's still my grandfather still lives in to this day, and they took really good care of it. And my grandfather was always having to do these projects for my grandmother because she just always had these ambitions, and I think this comes from her own background. From they were her side of the family was definitely more better off. They were of higher class. I don't actually know. I could probably ask sometime, but I don't actually know how they came about their money or what industry or whatever the case may be. But nonetheless, they were pretty well off. And my grandfather, on the other hand, he was not. He was one of I think 10 children, maybe even more. My grandfather never really talked about himself a lot, and so that kind of becomes difficult to really put together some of his life. But he was a depression child. He worked for the street department. Retired right around the time that I was really was just born. I kind of remember, I have a couple memories of him actually pulling up in some of his like company trucks, but he didn't work very much longer after I was born. And I think that was really good timing, because I was my mom's first kid, the oldest of three, and he was just retiring, so I was kind of this new life around him, this new sort of purpose. And I think our bonding, and I was always trying to be as handy as he was, because I was just wanted to learn about everything. And so I would just inquire and just bug him all day about all of the stuff that he would do. And he was a really, really active guy. And it's kind of funny to even examine his diet, which I think he pushed off on me, which we might go on a little bit later towards the end of this video. But he was a total sugar addict. Still to this day, he gets caught with sweets, and he just he never really had, he didn't have vices. He wasn't a smoker. I remember him telling me that he got caught with a cigar by my great grandfather, who my middle name comes from, and he told me he got caught and lectured and basically got beat up for it. And he said after that he never smoked again, and he couldn't drink. There's one Thanksgiving in particular where he had like one beer, and he was totally totally gone and loopy off of it. So sugar was really like his only vice. And like I said, he could eat donuts and sugar with me all day, and would just still run around, and he was just really just had a lot of life to him, vitality. Even to this day, I still attest to that. Even though he's almost 90 now. But actually, he only 5 or so years ago, I want to say, he had some cable issues while my aunt was out one day, and he tried to climb up there to fix it and fell off and broke his neck. He's in his 80s, still trying to climb up onto the roof. So that just kind of shows you what kind of man he was, and I admired him deeply. And my father's told me since that I really was like my grandfather's child. Probably because, like I said, it was just the timing of his retirement and my upbringing. And I never was in daycare. I always just was at my grandparents' house when my parents weren't working. We were really poor growing up. I think that would be, I had a really nice and committed family, or at least in the intermediate sense, especially on my mother's side. And I think if there was one thing, it was definitely money issues. And this wasn't because like my dad and my mom weren't slouches or anything. They were just, working class people who didn't really do anything with higher education, even though I think they're both smart enough that they could have. But I think my dad did a little bit of accounting. But nonetheless, they never really used that to any of their work. And my dad, who I have had a much better relationship as I got older and wiser, and kind of understood what life can do to a man more than just being some armchair kid just looking out into the world and just casting doubt. My dad is a really honest man and a hard-working man. But when he was younger, he definitely, the abuse, I think, especially from my grandfather and from my grandmother in the psychological sense. She would lie to him consistently about they were going to do this or that, and then he would tell his friends, and it would be bullshit. And I think that affected him greatly. And I actually give him credit because he did break the cycle. He never physically harmed anyone in our family, to my knowledge. But I think that's pretty true. I don't think that there is anything behind the scenes or anything like that with my other siblings. If anything, he mellowed out more and more as time's gone on, and our relationship's gotten stronger because of it. But he was a hothead, just like similar to how I am now. It's one of the traits I think I got from him. is being a hothead and kind of having this neuroticism of trying to control things that you really can't, and pushing doubt on yourself about it. And I think I share a lot of that and the kind of lone wolf attitude that he also has. My dad never, when he was younger, he used to still hang around people when he became a family man. But as time went on, I think just because his friend circle kind of diminished, as life happens. But he definitely just stuck to being dad, and not much else outside of it. And obviously, I'm very thankful for that. But I think his temperament got the best of him in the workforce, and he would, just kind of give the fuck you finger to his bosses a lot, and would quit a job before he has something else lined up. And I don't think he really had the chops for trying to get some long-term planning for any kind of financial structure for himself. And my parents were both young when they had me. Like, I think I was born a year earlier than they wanted, as my mom kind of told me when I asked her about it one time. They got married, and then within a year they had me. They wanted to probably get at least another year under their belt, but I popped out. I decided I wanted to show up then, and just to entertain the people who might be interested, since we were talking about Steiner a little bit. I am a Gemini. I have the kind of duality of trying to fight these kind of perspectives, which I think actually in my adolescence was a lot stronger than it is now. I think I had this, there's this kind of creativity when you're a child that just can't be matched. But that kind of runs all over the place because, as I kind of will probably demonstrate when we go through my childhood more, I couldn't really keep things aligned in a structured way. I would, buzz off and go into all these different directions, and I couldn't really keep it together, probably because of my attention deficit. But that's a little bit later. But just to kind of maybe wrap it up a little bit, I did want to talk a little bit about my upbringing outside of my immediate family, the environment aspect of it. And like I said, I was rather poor growing up, and I had good family though, and that's really what got you through is having good family to be able to help you out in these binds. But I do remember there's a lot of there's a lot of tension and a lot of strain on my mom and dad when they were younger, and it was just me. And then when we moved into our first actual house, we lived in this apartment, and it was a total disaster. It was this brick building. I remember being very anxious. That's another thing too. I've always been extremely anxious, probably because of this brick apartment where we had this particular landlord who was a total drunk. He was a complete degenerate, and he one day was day drinking, and he decided to come up to our door. This was on the third story, I believe. He decided to come up to our door, and he wanted to come inside for no reason. He was just drunk and totally unintelligible. And my dad said, "No, you're not going to do that. I have my 1 year." I was maybe 1 or 2, and he kept trying to come in and tried to force past my dad, and my dad got fed up and roughed him up and basically hung him out over the banister and was literally choking him to death. My mom recalls having to just scream at my dad to just stop because he was literally gonna kill him. And so I think the landlord's mother-in-law called the cops on him because he's just being a drunk degenerate. And so the cops arrive, and initially they're actually gonna take my dad away, which I think kind of plays into maybe later on with my dislike for authority when I was a teenager. They went after my father, and even the mother-in-law was insisting, like, no, I'm trying to. You guys need to deal with this landlord who just tried to break an entry, even though in it there's a child in there, and it was a one door apartment. This is a very low class apartment structure here. There was only one door entry, and there was a female cop, as my parents were called, and she saw me. She saw that there was only one door, and she said that, yeah, that this is just a bad situation that the landlord caused on his own. And not long after that, needless to say, we were out of there. And I think actually when we moved out, which I don't really remember too much, we moved to the family neighborhood house that I grew up in. I remember this was the time that we found out that I was going to have a sister. And I was 5. And that's pretty exciting that you find out you're going to have a sibling, although, there comes the vain only child now realizing that there's going to be a cuter baby around because you're 5 and now there's a newborn. So you're old news. And so you kind of have that resentment from the start, though, subtly, of course. And that'll play into the sibling rivalry that I would form with my sister, who I love dearly, by the way. I hope if she made it this far, she sees this. But I think oh man, this is almost a 30-minute intro. I think to summarize, I was a pretty shy kid, but even from the start, I had already shown that I was probably going to be very curious, and I think this was about this time where I started to actually admire meteorology, and I got obsessed with the Weather Channel in particular because I live out in the Midwest, and seeing weather patterns not only just change, but how it could even buck predictive capabilities. Like the meteorologists around here kind of just throw their arms up in the air sometimes, and they're like, whatever happens, happens. And I was always fascinated by that. And I was fascinated by these natural disasters that occur that could really just, take over your life quite literally. And even at the age of 7, I was already impressed by this kind of documentation of these sort of phenomenon. And so yeah, I think I want to leave it to there with the birth of my sister and moving into my childhood house. And also the start of when I began to kind of build my childhood interest towards wrestling and the GameBoy. And this is going to be another thing too. Gaming culture, of course, was huge for me as a millennial. And the Game Boy and my first game, Pokemon Red, actually was a very important aspect of my life at the time, because video games gave me something that I not just the curiosity and just the effects of playing a video game, but it was just so much more than that. It was this escape from reality. You were Ash, you were Red. You were this 10-year-old boy traveling far and wide, messing with these creatures and these animals, if you will, and harnessing them and doing your own thing. And I think that impressed me deeply as well. But yeah, that was just the introduction video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys for part 2.